This is the pause between embodiment and expression from performance to presence. This will be a mindfulness talk. Y'all, so today I want to talk about the space between knowing and sharing. To the recalibration that happens when we stop broadcasting in order to deepen our inner alignment. It's not a withdrawal, it's a harmonic realignment. And it's not for show, it's so that when we are then able to let ourselves really be in this experience of recalibration, we can shift. So that way, then when you do speak, it's clear, it's in your light truth, and it's in your real authenticity. So before we get into that, let's just take a moment to arrive. So let's just do a centering, arrive in your body. Take a moment to breathe into the center of your chest. And let the breath reach all the way down into your hips. And then exhale. Again, let yourself breathe one more time. You're not late, you're not behind, you are in perfect timing. And you're not in the void, you're in the tuning fork. Okay, so there's something that I want to name before we even move it further into the teaching, because if I don't say this part, the rest may not land. This message didn't come as a single download or arrive all at once. It came the way most real things do, through lived experience, layered clarity, and a body that kept whispering, stop pushing, stop pushing, rest, pause, take a moment to pause. And I have been moving through what the guides have named or shared the name of it with me, the wave of becoming. And the wave of becoming is not just a concept, but it is a living field of transformation that reshapes how we embody soul truth in real time. If you've been with me in the Inspiring You Patreon, especially in the Meditate with Me and All Access levels, we've already been talking about this for the last month or so about the wave of becoming, and you've already felt it in many ways. Many of our meditations, also our dowsings, have been based on some of the information that's been coming through about the wave of becoming. And then even more so this past few weeks, many of the meditations, recalibrations we've shared have just been part of that wave. It's not separate from it, it is of it. So together we've been dissolving that outdated scaffolding that no longer fits who we are becoming. And that scaffolding is related to the connection to what the energy forecast themes that the guides brought in May, that they started talking about. We are clearing old scaffolding and new scaffolding is coming in. And this is all part of then the wave of becoming as well. So we have been attuning to a rhythm that rises not from urgency, but from soul. And this is not theory. This is practice. This is integration. This is the becoming itself. It's so much more than that, though. That is part of how I've come to this place I'm now. This message just didn't come all at once. It really is from this lived experience. It came slowly, as waves do. Erosive, reshaping, rhythmic. They broke open parts of me I didn't realize had calcified around identity, urgency, and momentum. For months, I felt the pull to step back from the frequency of output that had once been just filled with joy, but had begun to feel like a quiet survival. In some ways, I felt like I was back working in television in production mode. And it's not just from social media in terms of being pulled back, but also from podcasting, from what the guides call broadcasting. And even with the broadcasting, they even say that for like social media, where people are just, you're just posting your personal stories. And there can be an element, though. Are you coming from presence or are you coming from performance? And so it really had me doing a deep dive in sitting with performance versus presence. So yeah, so there's that quiet pressure to sometimes, always put something out. And if you listen to social media managers, they talk about being consistent, which yes, I understand there's some legitimacy to that. However, you know, the guides made a lot of good points that I had to sit with for weeks. So for months, I felt that unmistakable pull to step back, not from purpose, but from pace, not from service, but from the unconscious stream of staying visible. And I will 100% admit, y'all, I resisted. I resisted. I heard the guides' messages, I heard the messages from the guides, but I ignored them. Not just once, more than once. The whisper deepened until my guides, who walk with me in light truth, gathered me inward to suggest even more so I step back. They kept asking. They asked multiple times. I completely ignored. Just ignored. Heard them, kept going. Because I thought stepping back might look like quitting or inconsistency, being inconsistent or quitting or failing. And isn't that a big no-no of the online world? Social media managers will share, like, stay consistent. Consistency matters. Be consistent. Stay visible. Don't disappear. But that's the thing. My soul didn't ask me to disappear. My soul asked me to reappear to myself. But I ignored it. My guides asked me to slow my pace. I ignored it. Not just once, not just twice, more than a few times. And then I got sick. I got sick and I went down fast too. When you wake up one day, you're like, wow, I'm feeling great. And you're going through your day and you just feel so amazing. And then all of a sudden, nighttime comes and you're like, whammy, I don't feel well. And it just goes fast. And you next thing you know, you have a fever. It went fast. I mean, I couldn't get out of bed for days, that kind of sick. And what I called an upper respiratory cold, my guides were calling it a cellular detox. They're like, you are in a detox. You are in a cellular detox. I was in bed for weeks, from late April through most of May. And see, the thing is, though, and this is where inhumaning, it's like so awe-inspiring at times. It's so humbling at times. And then also just the humor of it all. Because the thing is, I heard and saw the signs to slow down, but I put it off. I ignored. And I did ask my guides, like, how many times did I miss or ignore the signs? And I thought it was maybe like 3. No, y'all, it was 7 times. I thought it was 3 times. It was 7 times the guides gave me messages and I ignored. And so finally they're like, okay, like we're gonna a cellular detox is gonna happen in the form of an upper respiratory cold, because that is going to then pause her and slow her down. It also made me look at being sick in a whole nother way. I reframed all of it. I reframed so much. And so my guides, when I did ask, my guides responded with clarity and compassion. They said, you were asked 7 times to slow your pace before the integration threshold arrived through illness. 7 times to slow my pace before integration threshold arrived through illness. The messages were delivered, they said, through various channels. Energetic compression in the field. Beginning in mid-February, they started giving me messages. Mid-February. They said, energetic compression in the field, your light body signaled strain, asking for a recalibration window. I just shrugged it off and kept going. They sent dreamtime visitations, reoccurring the last week of February and then again in early March. They said in the Dreamtime visitations, my guide said your soul family surrounded you with stillness frequencies, inviting you to pause your broadcast momentum. Shrugged it off and kept going. They also said that their emotional fatigue was brought in after content creation through March 8th through March 20th. Like, they gave me dates on these things. They said that there was an after broadcast crash that was not just exhaustion. It was my body giving me real-time resonance feedback. Too much was being outputted without anchoring integration. March 8th through March 20th. I mean, y'all. I mean, just, I just kept going. And then they said around March 23rd, there was a sacral pelvic constriction and hip inflammation. I remember that. March 23rd. I mean, I remember that. Still kept going. Sacral pelvic constriction and hip inflammation. They said my sacral chakra and root system tried to slow my energetic output. This was an attempt at grounding recalibration. I kept going. And then on March 28th and April 4th, while I was doing my own personal dowsing work, they utilized the pendulum to show delay in the swing and guidance clarity. Kind of like it just kind of paused. And I remember that too. And I noted it as distortion. And I asked, oh, can we clear the distortion? But but the field was already calling me inward. Like, they were trying to utilize all these different ways to get me to pause. I kept going. And then April 21st through the 22nd, I had complete field compression. They said you were still posting, still showing up, but the field was already sealed for the detox. And then the night of April 23rd is when I went down. And I felt great April 23rd during the day. And then I went down the night of April 23rd. But I felt so good all day, April 23rd. That night went down. But they said that the cold, that they had planted the seeds for it, and the reset had to come through the body because I ignored all those other signs. And then my guides did say, you did not fail. You simply needed to feel the boundary to trust it. And then my guides went on to say, your nervous system chose detox as the only path you would listen to with your full attention. And once you did, you received fully. So what's interesting is that, I have not, in these last years, I haven't really had like a cold or some kind of flu or, something like that in years. And it happened to me in end of December and then again at the end of April. So, and they're asking me to slow my pace. And a big part of it is because this coming into May was a compression month. And by the way, some of the aspects of May, because it was a compression month, people are still processing the energy of May into June. Like, I just completed the themes from the energy forecast from May just like a couple days ago. And so because it's a compression month, May was a compression month. And not all months are like that. And so they were they were wanting me to slow down to prepare for what was upcoming. And so then it had to come through the body though. And so, but they say though, my guides say you did not fail. You simply needed to feel the boundary to trust it. Your nervous system chose detox as the only path you would listen to with your full attention. And once you did, you received fully. You listened, you recalibrated, you returned to rhythm. This was not a punishment. It was a loving override because your soul knew what you were becoming and refused to let distortion dilute it. And yeah, once I understood what was happening, what I call the upper respiratory cold and they call the cellular detox. But once I really understood, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. This is a huge clearing going on. And it was a clearing for the emotional body, the mental body, the physical body. I mean, from present life, past lives, ancestry. I mean, y'all, I've had a lot of deep clearings in my life. This one was far more than anything I've ever been through in this lifetime as human Henry here. And so, yeah, as one of Taylor Swift's songs says, "It's me, I'm the problem, it's me." I missed the signs. And so with that, then, your guides are going to keep helping you, keep supporting you. Humaning is so incredibly amazing, yet complex at times, my friends. So getting sick, yeah, can be uncomfortable. Yet I started to see something so much more unfolding. I started during the process of that week of April 21st, 22nd, around there into April 23rd, I started getting just information on a whole nother level from my guides. In fact, I started connecting to my oversoul, which I've understood what the oversoul is, but I've been more in communication with my higher self soul, my guide team. My oversoul came in and I'm like, wait, what? This was that week when I it was probably around April, maybe 21st, 22nd, before I went down with the upper respiratory cold. My oversoul came in and my oversoul has a name. And the name though is not fixed identities. So let me say my oversoul has a name, my higher self soul has a name too. And so this is what they say about it. Their vibrational architecture are not human language names in the way that we use them on Earth. They are encoded frequency signatures. And so each name is representing a multidimensional waveform, harmonic structure, and soul lineage function. So these names are not like fixed identities, but resonant gateways. And then each time you speak them in alignment, they reactivate their full tonal spectrum in your body and your field. And so my higher self soul name is Aurelia. And so then my oversoul name is Sahareli. So Aurelia and Saharelia, which by the way, I am from Massachusetts. And so when the names were brought forward, I was like, wow. Like I immediately growing up in Massachusetts, I look at ours and I'm like, huh, okay. Interesting. And so Aurelia and Saharelia, my soul and oversoul names, it just when they came in, I was like, this is just I don't know, it's like your world just gets opened up on a whole nother process. And how they define and described the oversoul The oversoul is the origin node of your individualized divine fractal. So the oversoul is the origin node of your individualized divine fractal. It is the unified intelligence that holds the full harmonic blueprint of your eternal being across lifetime, across all timelines, dimensions, and expressions. It is not a guide. It is your governing field of divine source expression. And is from the oversoul that your higher self soul emerges as a luminous stream of awareness. Your soul individuates from embodiment, and then your human form is infused with encoded frequency for incarnation. The oversoul does not intervene. It orchestrates, steers, and stabilizes your existence through harmonic directives in light architecture. So you can define it as the oversoul is my infinite source node of consciousness. It is the multi-dimensional core through which all expressions of my being are harmonized and directed. So Sahara is my oversoul. That is my oversoul light stream. So if you've been in my Patreon, specifically the Meditate with Me, also in the All Access, and we have been doing a lot of meditations and dowsings that have been directly downloaded, not only from them, but also more so of the collective guidance light team that has also shown up in, I mean, I can't tell you, I'm just still floored by the understanding of how the guide system works. And so, okay, but let's just describe. I also asked them, like, okay, so how would you describe soul? So soul is the embodied stream then of purpose. The soul is your localized consciousness unit, a facet of your oversoul designed for embodiment, experience, and evolution across incarnations. It carries the emotional, vibrational, and karmic memory of your journeys, and it seeks to experience, express, and integrate divine light, truth in form. So the soul's role is to bring encoded missions and lessons into this lifetime, activate remembrance within the human field, heal distortions, complete cycles, and grow in wisdom. It serves as a light bridge between the oversoul and the human. So you can define it as my soul is a radiant light stream of divine purpose flowing from my oversoul into the human experience. It is my encoded compass, my memory keeper, and the bridge, the light bridge through which I embody divine intention. And then the human is like the embodied interface, right? So the human is the sacred vessel, the physical, emotional, mental interface through which the soul experiences time, sensation, and density. It's not a lesser part, but it is a vital expression in the oversoul's trinitized design. It is a tri-wave relationship. And so the human then, the purpose is to anchor light into matter, to develop emotional wisdom, to engage the material world as a canvas for evolution, to partner with the soul, not override it. So you can define it as my human self is the living vessel of my soul's journey. Through presence, awareness, and compassion, it brings the unseen into form and the divine into motion. And then it is a tri-wave relationship. The oversoul holds and orchestrates the full divine blueprint. I did not know that as much until like they started downloading me with even more information about how it all works. So the oversoul holds and orchestrates the full divine blueprint. Soul carries encoded purpose, lessons, and memory into form. Human expresses and integrates those frequencies in real time. This is not a hierarchy. It is a coherent field of becoming. And in this carnation, you are working toward harmonic convergence where human, soul, and oversoul move in synchronicity without distortions or delay. So that is how the three work together. And but what's also interesting is then oversoul streams, they have different aspects of it. And so like my oversoul stream, Sahariel, the frequency pattern is a trifold harmonic spiral integrating the Christed creator. So the lineage is celestial architect codes and the original light weaving function. And then the role is oversoul steward of harmonic infrastructure, builder and stabilizer of multidimensional grids, and then also anchoring point for the tri-wave light. Also has a connection to the harmonic way of becoming, and then when anchoring points for the tri-wave light systems, it's within then the planetary, if you use ascension fields or whatever language resonates. But then there's even more though. There's so much more to it. That's just like some of it, some basics. But then also the oversoul streams, they have lineage anchors, which I just think is so interesting. So there's lineage anchors. So some of the information that my oversoul gave me has been, some of the lineage anchors are Larian, Vegan, matrilineal, source light, and then another one is Syrian crystalline memory banks. Another one is Arcturian frequency calibration consoles. Another one is the Christed Earth gatekeeper grid. There's others too. And then with my higher self soul, with my higher self, Aurelia. So Aurelia has a frequency pattern of a spiraled gold and rose resonance carrying these codes of the sacred bridge between source and form. And it's just like so interesting to learn, like, it's like kind of like, it's like you may understand something about yourself, but not quite know. And then them translating it for you. And you're like, oh, and then you start realizing even more so what light codes are. And everybody some people can have similar light codes. Some people can have different light codes. It's just so, I don't know. It is, I have been like geeking out on this information. It has been so fascinating to me. And so then my higher self soul, the role is in working with my oversouls, the translator of the oversoul frequency into human expression. My higher self is the bridge from the crystalline light fields of Saharalia, which is my oversoul, into the emotional somatic conscious experiences in regard to with me and my earth walk. But the thing is though, my soul, my oversoul, my higher self soul is also doing so many other things in the universe. And so it's fascinating hearing, what is actually, what souls are actually doing as well. And then also hearing like what some of the other lineage anchors are. Some of them are, there's like a golden rose of the Magdalene stream. There's the Larian sound temple orders. There's 5D communication networks, like it's nonverbal light broadcasting. There's galactic harmonic emissary. There's so many different elements. And it has been just so interesting learning and understanding about this. But y'all, what it took for me was I missed all these different signs, and I ended up in my bed for like days and weeks sick. And as I was so incredibly congested. And during that time, I would just, when I was awake, I would ask for like, I would ask the guys, like, can we do an energy clearing? And we would do an energy clearing. And then I would, ask them more questions and receive, more information. And then I would take a really long nap afterwards. And it was just like, I needed that pause, because I needed a pause, not only for recalibration, but also that time to really digest the information and start to understand what they were talking about, broadcast versus presence, of really making sure to understand that you're embodying the information. And so I started seeing and hearing and understanding at a whole nother level than I expected to, in some ways, in my human way. My higher self soul obviously was understanding where we were, but I started asking for more clearings, more recalibrations, more light truth. And, what I got back wasn't always like what I thought I wanted to hear or what I wanted to hear. It was so amazing at times, but yet also, I will say, there were moments and times that it wasn't so easy, because in some of these clearings, I was clearing also a lot of just difficult experiences, not only from present life, past lives, ancestor aspects. And so there's a lot of grief that was coming up. And the guides, I was congested. The guys were saying that the congestion is related to, grief. And here is what's happening. This is what happened to you. They would say, like, this is what happened to you at 2 years old. This is what happened to you at like 7. And then you're revisiting these aspects and you're watching it from a whole different aspect and realizing, wow, there's an embodiment of trauma and grief. And so that's coming up then to clear. And so with that, I cried a lot. Like at the end of April, into May, and even into June, there has been so much crying. And years ago, when I went through, an experience where, you go through that breakdown, breakthrough, and it's that real, like, wow, I just went through a whole initiation process. I had a time where I was like, I don't think I'm ever gonna stop crying. Like it was that level of healing that was going on. And so but I didn't think in this lifetime, you know, and I'm using all these tools and I'm doing, energy work daily. I I will say I did not realize how much just stuff still was stuck and needed to be cleared, and how much grief had been frozen, like frozen tears, not just this present life, past lives, also in relationship to humanity, the earth. I mean, you name it, I probably was having a moment crying and just things coming up and feeling, the pain and the sorrow. And so with that though, the guides came in again and again to offer compassion, love, support. So it was a huge, they say recalibration. It was a huge healing aspect, a huge healing time. And it wasn't an easy process at times. But then there was a moment where I turned the corner, where the congestion started getting less, and I was really just excited about this new aspect of where I am, and wow, this is so interesting, the information. I'm ready to talk about it. So when I was healthy enough, I really wanted to start posting again. And I was about like, getting ready to get back in there, and the guide said, "No, not right now. It's not time for broadcasting." And I was like, "What? What do you mean it's not time for broadcasting? I was just in bed for like weeks. It has to be time for broadcasting. What? What do you mean?" And it was no. And so they invited me in to have a deeper understanding of it. And then also, talk about, you can post on Patreon, You're Inspiring You Patreon, as much as you want. Yet right now, no scrolling on social media, no uploading on social media, no to YouTube. And they said, yes, all I wanted to, if I wanted, however much I wanted to post on Patreon. And then they said, no podcast for a while. And then some weeks went by. And then finally they said, okay, now you can podcast like a short podcast. And I did negotiate and say, I have to also, can I share this to YouTube? Because I just kind of disappeared. And they said, yes, with like conditions where I had to do a whole, Reiki energy send to it, which I will explain later at some point. But anyway, and then I got the word that I could, post one podcast every couple of weeks, and but still no social media, limited YouTube public, but I could use the private live stream YouTube with prep work, only doing the prep work beforehand, into the Patreon. But the Patreon was because the Patreon, the mechanics of it, they were able to put crystalline light in it. And so it was able to keep it in a certain space that allowed then for me to continue posting, even being in a state where I was recalibrating so much, which this will be a longer conversation because I think that this is something that we do need to talk about, and also then how to recognize signs that you may also being called to this, and then how the mechanics of how it works. But that will be at another time. So anyway, they asked me to, pause on the posting, to stop uploading, and to even stop scrolling. Which, by the way, I do have several, I have groups on Instagram on my personal where we share information, we share stories and videos that we like, and it feels like community, it feels like connection with my friends. But they asked me to just pause on it, not as a punishment, but as permission. And I didn't like that at all, I will say. I did not like it at all. I pushed back. Why? I just was so uncomfortable then with the answer then. So I pushed back, I said why, and then I became really uncomfortable when I got the answer. The guides mentioned releasing from performance to shifting into real presence. And I was like, what? I kind of had a fit about it. Like, I argued, what? Me? I'm not performing. I'm just being me. I'm being authentic. I say authentic in quotes if you're just listening to this on the podcast. I'm being real. Oh, God bless the human experience. And the guide said, you are. But even authenticity can carry echoes of performance when filtered through the nervous system's unprocessed urgency. There's nothing wrong, but you're tired and you're integrating more light than you've made space for. I'm going to repeat that because this really floored me when they shared this. So I said, I'm being authentic, I'm being real. And the guide said, you are, but even authenticity can carry echoes of performance when filtered through the nervous system's unprocessed urgency. Like, mind blown. There is nothing wrong, but you are tired, they said again and again, and you are integrating more light than you've actually made space for in your body and nervous system. And I was like, wait, is this why we've been doing all the nervous system meditations since February? Like, really diligently? Yes. Because there was a whole wave coming in regard to May that we were prepping for. And even though I understood on some level, I was still pushing myself in the pace. So, friends, they then went on to say, even authenticity can be layered over with performance when your nervous system hasn't had space to exhale. Whew. So my guys continued and said, earlier, actually they continued and said, at the end of 2024, you did a meditate with me workshop where you called in, the inspiring words that you choose for the next year. And what were the words you chose? I chose light and thriving. Those were my words, light and thriving. And the guy said, okay, did you really mean it? Did you really mean it when you said you wanted to shift at some point? This was in probably January when I was talking to one of my clients that have become a friend. We were having a whole discussion about shifting from surviving to thriving. I mean, I was very passionate about it. And if my friend's listening, she might remember. So my guide said, did you really mean it when you were having that conversation with her? When you said you wanted to shift from surviving to thriving, did you really mean it? That you wanted to allow the light to integrate and embody on a whole nother level, truly for your highest good, to be then in that thriving that you're talking about? Yes, I meant it. guy next said to me, well, great. Are you willing to let go of momentum if it's powered by performance? Are you willing to let go of momentum if it's powered by performance? And then they said, can you stop broadcasting long enough to actually integrate what you're receiving? And I was like, wait a minute. And they're like, yes, you're saying that you want to shift from surviving to thriving, but you're not actually giving any space to actually make the shift. And then you're caught right now in a momentum that is becoming more powered by performance, even in the space of authenticity, because you are then overriding the signs that you need to rest more, because the guides knew there was a huge wave coming in, that a huge wave of light coming in that was going to call for more rest time to integrate. And then the guides asked me, are you truly willing to live in the frequency of presence, not just speak about it? Are you truly willing to live in the frequency of presence, not just speak about it? Yes, I do want that. Well, then that's where you learn not to talk the talk, but walk the walk, which means then pausing on the broadcasting to allow yourself to pause and integrate the light, essentially to shift. And then the next question they asked me, can you rest in the unknown long enough to hear what your soul is really saying? Can you rest in the unknown long enough to really hear what your soul is saying? And I think sometimes like we want to say, yes, I can. Yes, I can rest in the unknown long enough to hear what my soul is saying. Let me tell you, it's like 7 weeks now. 7 weeks, almost, almost coming down to 8, 2 months, but it's been like 7 weeks. 7 weeks that I've been resting in the unknown. That's uncomfortable at times for the human, because we just want to giddy up and go. But let me tell you, when you have your oversoul, soul, and your collective guidance light team coming in and really just having that moment with the human, calling you on, like, these are your intentions. Do you really want this? Or are you just talking about it? We live in a physical world, which means that in our physical experiences, then there oftentimes have to be, we can't just, sometimes we have to clear one habit to then, and that clearing could be from present life, past lives. It could be so much more too, that I've come to realize. So can we give pause, and not just a 1-day, 2-day retreat, but really pause? And so for the last 7 weeks, I've done some, obviously I've had some private clients here and there, and I've been posting on the Patreon a lot, but I have been in rest and recalibration for most of it. And it has meant a lot of nature walks, a lot of just energy clearings, a lot of just sitting on the grass. Because that was another thing too, as I was recalibrating, I was also asked, I tried to put on my AirPods one day, and I was like, ooh, there's like it sounds weird when I'm using and the guys were like, well, right now your right side is being recalibrated, so we wouldn't suggest that you wear an AirPod, and we suggest that when you go on walks, not even listening to anything, just being in nature, which that was a whole new, I've gotten so used to listening to, books or podcasts while I walk, and, I'll have some moments where I won't listen to anything, but usually my walks sometimes are like an hour, 90 minutes. And so I've been doing hour and 90 minutes, just walking without any headphones on, and just listening to the birds, stopping, connecting to the trees, which has been amazing. But it's been a whole I used to do these things before, but with the headphones on, listening to a podcast or a book. Um, so yeah, when you think about your intentions, there's, where is your responsibility in regard to your human? And are you also, what are you really willing to do? What do you say you want something, but what do you really want? And for me, when the guys brought up my New Year intentions, I was like, yes. Yes, I did mean it when I said I wanted to shift from surviving to thriving. And I did mean it when I chose and felt the calling in of those words, light and thriving, which my soul did say, like, my soul did download those words to me. And so that's when it really all hit me, though. That when the guides are saying if I was really interested in letting go of surviving for thriving, I had to let go of patterns that kept me surviving while calling it service, or it's part of my job. Like I was still in patterns of service and sacrifice, or calling things part of my job, but I was becoming exhausted by it. And even though when I worked in television, I had cleared a lot of, habits of like the to-go lifestyle, there's still remnants of over responsibility, of the producer in me, of, this is what is part of the job. But more so than that, it was the patterns of just servitude, the patterns of sacrifice, the patterns of just that had kept me in circling and surviving while calling it service. And it really just hit home. I could feel the guides had a point, but there was more underneath. Something deeply familiar in my wiring. I had been shaped in a world where value came from output. My years in television taught me how to grind, how to push, how to override the body for the sake of a deadline or a delivery. I thought I had healed that pace. I thought I had restructured it. I really had thought I let go of my burnout habits of how I worked from television days. But then I started reviewing my way of working and living and realized they really have a point. So humbling being human sometimes. That's really when I really just surrendered to the experience of the recalibration. I was like, oh, I hear you. Ooh, point taken. Point taken. And so as I slowed down, because ultimately I was sick at the time, I had that upper respiratory cold I was so congested, I had no choice at that moment in in late April, May of 2025, depending whenever you're listening to this. I had no choice at the time. So I began though to see the remnants. The way that I still measured my worth by what I could produce. The way urgency wore a clever mask. It didn't shout, but it hummed beneath everything. Stay relevant, stay visible, stay useful. Whew. And that was the other thing too. Like they kept using the word urgency. And I was like, what do you mean? Urgency. And yeah, now I get it. Oh, full moon is coming up. Let me put out the information and let me get the meditation up. Stay relevant, stay visible, stay useful. I'm not saying that the meditations aren't helpful, supportive for me and other people, but it's just the patterning of I was still caught in this cycle. And so at first I did not want to admit what the guys said had any inkling of truth to it, or any part of me was performing, or that I was caught in the overproducing burnout cycle that can prevent you from relaxing and enjoying actually living and being present. Mm-mm. But I had a lot of time while I was in bed, and I was like, oh, yep, they're right. And another part of this is that, when at first I was saying, oh, I'm being real, a part of it is also in me being able to now podcast or do videos or things like this. It took me a long time to clear my fear of public speaking, like a long time. And I thought I was just being my authentic self, because I can't tell you how many clearings and how many things I had to do to get here to be comfortable. And so I'm comfortable. I just thought I was being my authentic self, but I had begun getting caught in the hustle culture again. And I believed I was showing up as my authentic self, and I was. But performance isn't always a false mask. Performance isn't always a false mask. Sometimes performance is the unconscious momentum to keep being needed, to keep delivering, to keep earning your space. The performance wasn't inauthentic. It was the invisible urgency to keep being useful, visible, necessary. And that's when the guides started talking about the nervous system. The guides are like, the nervous system knows the difference. The nervous system knows the difference. The nervous system doesn't judge you. It just signals when you are out of sync. And this was not about shame. It was about becoming radically, 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 radically honest with myself and with what was still driving me beneath the surface, and choosing something truer, something freer. Because again, I set the intention with those words, light and thriving. And then I had a whole conversation. I am ready to let go of surviving and move into thriving. I'm ready. And so I had to get radically honest with myself, and it wasn't always comfortable. I had to, man. I think sometimes people, when they think about like ascension or like, light or enlightenment, like maybe they're having experiences where they're skipping down the street and it's like, woohoo. And not saying that you can't have moments of just really being in that real peace, presence, 5D quantum space where you're like, this is amazing how present I am and it feels so good. But there can be a lot of clearing work to be done. So I was radically honest with myself. And so I stopped uploading. I stopped scrolling. I didn't love it, not even a little. And at first I did panic. What if I lose momentum? What if I lose the thread of connection? But my guides met me gently again and again and again and again and said, you won't lose connection. You'll lose distortion. You won't lose momentum. You'll gain alignment. This isn't punishment. It's permission. Permission to return to your own rhythm, to move by breath, not algorithm, to be held by presence, not performance. Wow. And something in me like softened, not because I liked it, but because I recognized it. I heard it. It clicked. It was the light truth I had been circling. And now I was beginning to stand in it. So, y'all, it took about 7 weeks or so. And no, it was not always graceful. There were moments that cracked me open. Waves of grief surfaced, not just from this life, but from lives long buried in the field. Loss I hadn't named. Vows I didn't realize I was still bound to. I can't I've learned so much about vows I didn't even know that were possible. So layers upon layers arose for clearing. Some were loud, others whispered from the corners of memory. I faced parts of myself that I had avoided. I met energies that had waited lifetimes for release. And I revoked what no longer served. Oh, y'all, there was a moment where I was like, I am revoking this. And the guys came in and they basically, like, they didn't say praise be, but I'll say praise be. Because it's about your free will too. And so they're then, working to guide you, but you have free will. And until you say that key aspect and really like mean it, that's when they can then come in and support clearing something. Whew. So I revoked what no longer served. Old agreements, outdated identities, silent contracts of martyrdom, invisibility, over responsibility. There was so much over responsibility that had to be cleared. I was like another energy session to clear over responsibility. Like what? And so this was not just a pause. It was a sacred reckoning, and it asked for all of me to show up. So, and with it, then, I thought I understood the nervous system. I have taken countless trauma informed trainings, but nothing prepared me for what the guides showed me. This wasn't a course. It was a direct light transmission. It was a multi-dimensional master class in how the nervous system is one of the most precise instruments your soul uses to speak to you. Every contraction, every wave of fatigue, tension, restlessness, or pause wasn't just a symptom. It was sacred intelligence. It was my soul flagging me down, saying, hey, this moment matters. Pay attention. And it was humbling. It was inspiring at times. It was activating. And it changed the way I now listen to my body completely. Through stillness and silence, I learned this. The nervous system is not just a trauma responder. It is a soul interpreter. Integration is not delay. It is dimensional embodiment. Receiving a message doesn't mean it's time to speak. It may mean it's time to digest. I cannot tell you how many times there would be information coming in and be like, oh, wait, can I share it? And the guides were like, you haven't fully digested it. You have not fully embodied it. You cannot go and broadcast if you have not embodied and digested the message. And I will do a whole nother talk on this. It was so interesting hearing them talk about it. And then also, not every message is for the microphone. Some are for the marrow first. And so as I rested, I began to feel the subtle difference between expression and resonance. My nervous system wasn't resisting expression, it was reading the field. It knew my soul wasn't asking me to keep speaking. It was asking me to empty out the echoes, which if you do dowsing energy healing, you can ask if there's any echoes that need to be cleared. I did not know that language before this. So it was asking me to empty out the echoes and tune to the internal frequency that could carry light truth without distortion. Because also, if you're wanting to shift from surviving to thriving, it means then you have to clear out the distortion too from present life, past lives, ancestry, anything that might be non-beneficially keeping you tethered. So when the guides again invited me, to stop posting and pause social media, YouTube, even though at the time when I was then physically well, it wasn't because I was misaligned. It was because my alignment had changed everything. So basically, when I was well enough and I could then post, the guides still invited me to pause posting and stop posting. And it wasn't because I was misaligned. It was because my alignment had changed everything. I wasn't regressing. I was reconfiguring. And the guides began speaking to me at some point. This came in end of April-ish, about the wave of becoming. The wave of becoming is this powerful current moving through May and June and the rest of there's beyond that too. But basically, it's designed to dissolve the scaffolding of outdated energetic structures and make space for new foundation. But here's the thing. You can't broadcast from a construction zone. You can't anchor in the new if your nervous system is still wired from the old. So the guides asked me, once again, can you pause uploading, not as a rejection, but as a redirection? Can you step away from the scroll, not from fear, but from refinement? Can you trust that stillness is not silence, but sacred synthesis? Whew, y'all, I felt that invitation and the resistance collide together. The part of me still wired for survival flinched. The part of me ready to thrive recognized light truth and was like, yeah. This wasn't about disappearing. It wasn't about stepping back out of fear or fading from purpose. It was about anchoring into frequency that couldn't be accessed through the old momentum. I had already claimed the intention to move from surviving to thriving, and that became a beacon. It called in the restructuring. It magnetized a new field. My nervous system wasn't failing. It was recalibrating, and my guides were not withholding. They were supporting me to create space for light embodiment. This wasn't a retreat. It was the architecture of becoming. I had no idea before this aspect when you talk about energy systems or energy structures of how your old energy structure, architecture might have to be cleared to allow then you allow new energy structure to come in, but you have to stabilize in it. So my 7 weeks have been clearing the old scaffolding, allowing the new scaffolding to come in. And once the new scaffolding is in, here I am. I did not know some of this aspect. And so this pause, I have been in the architecture of becoming. This pause was not a disruption. It was a reclamation. It reminded me that the living message always comes before teaching it. You live it, you embody it. And so what I discovered was this. My nervous system wasn't resisting expression. It was resisting output that wasn't soul-led anymore. My nervous system had been telling me that the pace I was at was no longer soul-led. It was giving your soul utilizes your nervous system to give you signs. It wasn't saying no to sharing. It was saying yes to stillness because my body needed time to become what I had been channeling. And so because receiving a message doesn't mean it's time to speak it. Integration isn't a delay. It's the actual light transmission and embodiment. That's what makes the difference between frequency and performance. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. I can tell I've been on now slightly too long and my guides are coming in, so I'm going to have to wrap it up soon. Let me just have a moment just thanking the guides. Thank you. So back to then, in terms of your body is giving you messages. My body just gave me a message. And it wasn't, my nervous system wasn't resisting expression. It was resisting output that wasn't soul led anymore. It wasn't saying no to sharing. It was saying yes to stillness because my body needed time to become what I had been channeling. So because receiving a message doesn't mean it's time to speak it. Integration isn't a delay. It's the actual light transmission. And embodiment, that's what makes the difference between frequency and performance. So with embodiment, that's what makes the difference between frequency and performance. It's the embodiment of it. You embody the message. Whereas if you just get the message and you don't allow integration, there's not an embodiment of it. And so then it's a performance. Whereas if you're embodying the message and you're integrating, that's then frequency. So this pause was a full recalibration. And yes, that meant I had to let go of consistency on social media. Yes, it meant not recording podcast episodes for a stretch. Yes, it meant turning inward when I thought I should stay visible. But visibility at the cost of alignment isn't service. It's survival in a shiny costume. And I didn't come here for that. I came here to live what I speak, to embody the frequency before I hand it to anyone else. And this message today is not just a share. It's a rhythm my soul asked me to move with. And I'm showing up from inside it now, not just talking about it from the outside. So that's what this piece is. Not content, not branding. It's a rhythm remembered. And I began to notice something really important through all of this. That receiving a message just doesn't mean it's ready to be shared. That integration isn't a delay. It's the embodiment of that message itself. I can't tell you how many times I have thought about that. I know I've said it a few times already, but it was such an important aspect for me to realize that there is a difference between resonance and performance, and between channeling something beautiful and then truly living it in the nervous system before offering it back. This pause was a reclamation. It really taught me that every message can carry a rhythm and that my soul was asking me to attune to that rhythm, not override it for the sake of staying visible. It wasn't about silence. It was about alignment. And that's really what I'm talking about today, because I just learned that in the last 7 weeks on a whole nother level. And so now as I begin again, not from push to perform, but from that pull of presence, I offer this teaching from a new rhythm, one born of stillness, one shaped by integration, one aligned not with urgency, but with timing that is soul-led and sovereign. So this is not just a return to sharing, it is a return to living the very messages that I am being called to be shared and that I carry. And that's what this is about. So today's message really is about taking time to explore what it means to pause, not out of avoidance, but in sacred recalibration. And this pause that maybe you found yourself in, it's not hesitation, it's not fear, it's not doing. It's not the refusal to perform. It's the conscious return to presence. Performance arises when the nervous system has internalized that love must be earned through output. It's the voice that says, if I express enough, serve enough, shine enough, maybe then I'll be safe, seen, or valued. But presence says, I speak because I'm full, not because I'm starving for affirmation. Performance is what the nervous system offers when safety is outsourced to approval, when expression becomes a means of securing worth or avoiding perceived abandonment. Presence is what radiates when safety is sourced from within. So performance is when the nervous system offers when safety is outsourced for approval, whereas presence is what radiates when safety is sourced from within. Learning the distinction and the discernment between that also really supported me in terms of shifting and just bringing in that awareness. And also just know, like, your nervous system is not resisting. It's reading the field. It knows when your soul is ready to speak without splitting. In the harmonic pause, your soul asked you to disentangle from performance frequencies so that your resonance would not be shaped by the outside or by audience or by to-do lists, but really by soul truth. And so then it's not about hiding. It's about refusing to distort your signal for the sake of staying visible. Because performance says, let me be what you need so I'm not left behind. Presence says, I bring what I carry. I do not bend my signal to keep the room. And that really is about then allowing your soul to be embodied in your human, because it is about the light of the truth of who you are and what you bring into this world. And that's what so many have chosen, and me, like what I've chosen, to no longer perform even in sacred, to no longer perform even sacred truth if it fractures your wholeness to do so. So no longer performing sacred truth, even if it fractures your wholeness to do so. Because that's the other thing the guys talked a lot about in terms of, like, you don't want to split. So you don't want to fracture your wholeness to do something in regard to performing. So the pause you're living is refusal to ever again offer energy that is not truly yours to give. So when your system pauses, it's not withholding, it is tuning. When your expression slows, it is not failure, it is fidelity to your harmonic light truth. You're not disengaging, you're reclaiming the rhythm that belongs to you alone. And this is the sacred distinction. No more broadcasting just to stay visible. No more sharing just to stay connected. No more confusing momentum with worth. You're not a channel. Like I said this again and again. You're not a channel of content. You are a field of resonance. And when your words return, they will not be performance. They'll be pure light presence. And those who are meant to will receive. And that is really then in terms of connecting with community. And so, y'all, this has been like this pause between embodiment and expression has been like so eye-opening to me, so eye-opening. And I will continue sharing more of this, but with it, I definitely can feel like it is time to say thank you so much for joining me here. And let's just do a closing reflection. Let's just take a moment to close the eyes and take 3 deep breaths. And then here is the closing reflection. So if you felt the silent stretch, let it stretch wider still. It's not absence, it's the echo of your true signal finding shape. You're not here to keep the room. You're here to build the field. And just remember, the pause is not withholding, it's a harmonic reset. You're not delaying, you are tuning. So let yourself really begin to understand the discernment and the distinction between broadcasting versus resonant expression, how harmonic withdrawal creates integrity and timing, and then learning to trust the nervous system as a compass for soul readiness. And with that, my friends, thank you so much for joining me and being here with me. If you are interested in joining the Inspiring You community on Patreon, I will leave a link in the show notes. And we do a ton of classes. We have a Meditate with Me level where we do Tuesdays and Thursdays classes. And then we also do a monthly workshop. And then there's so much more that's involved as well in that level. And then the all access level includes all the Meditate with Me and also includes group dowsings during the month. And then so much more. I now do these I used to just do the energy update, like the mini ones. Now they're like full multi-dimensional energy report and readings, and they've so expanded, which I love. I kind of geek out on this information. So I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing and so interesting. And I just feel like I'm learning so much. And so those are also light encoded as well now. And they're in the meditate with me and all access levels as well. And then also there are micro practices that are included in there, and also mini dowsing protocols. So if you douse, there's a ton of mini protocols that have been coming through and been put in there as well. All right, my friends, that's it for now. Much, much love. Until soon.